We are here to close off this arc of comic creation that you guys have been on. I've been going around the rooms while you guys have been writing your stories and talking to you about them. They all sound pretty fantastic. So if you're all right with that, I would like to invite each and every one of you to bring your work up.
So we got a samurai, a Greek fairy, a vet on the telephone, and fantasy and comedy. So our first two frames are intended to establish the characters and the locations. That's why we put them in like this,
Right.
and the sort of story premise. So this one is your samurai on the ferry, and we use one of these objects that you mentioned, because that's supposed to suggest the ferry, and that up there is supposed to suggest the Greek ferry.
Beautiful.
Okay, so and the hairdo is how we're going to recognise this character, although actually Neil draws very well, so that's not such a problem. But the hairdo of the samurai is intended to be how we recognise this.
If I can make a suggestion, two things. One, since we have your beautiful comic on this beautiful projector, I would recommend going ahead and skipping over the actual reading it out loud and just letting the audience read it. And you know,
probably need to read the other ones.
I wasn't. You'll need some of them, but you can read that one.
Oh,
so that was the rationale. I'm just giving you the rationale.
No. And I would also suggest for leaving the rationale afterwards.
Okay, we'll do.
And getting some thoughts from the audience first.
Okay, ask the if the rationale is clear. Okay, no more rationale. Right, this is the second one. So the vet is a Milby, a cat or a dog. What are its symptoms? Because it could have been a name, you see. But actually, on the third slide, you see that it's not a name. It's not a cat or a dog. It's a sacred Japanese temple spirit. And it has purple snot and it sneezes sparks. We didn't quite get those in because it turned out to be hard. And there should be another sentence which we didn't fit in, which says he have to be healthy for sacrifice.
Also, we had the flashbacks, but I basically looked back.
Yeah. Well, that comes in a bit later. Okay, and this is the vet. Again, this one hasn't been filled in. The vet's a bit puzzled, and the cat, which you saw earlier, knows how to solve this. That sounds like, I forget what we called this, Cyprosondis or something like that. Yeah. Rub black olives into its ears. That was a stab at the comedy. And then here's the vet and the samurai talking to each other. Whoops. There you go. And the vet says that he knows the answer, but cannot condone Milby sacrifice. Actually, we missed the one about the sacrifice earlier. The sacrifice one is that you see a picture of the samurai kneeling, receiving the cage with the Milby in it, in a Japanese temple, and you see a Japanese priest with his mouth spouting out a Greek temple, and the idea is the Milby has to be taken to the Greek temple to be sacrificed. So that appeared earlier. Yeah. And then there's another fairly busy one that we haven't managed to work out, which comes now, which explains why the sacrifice, and it's like a diagram with a big arrow around it, which we can try and wave at you, but it's not very clear. It's a bit like this one, okay? And what you've got in the bottom is the Milby, and what you've got up here is the dead Milby invokes a Japanese demon, and the Japanese demon kills off all the people who are causing the Greek economic crisis, and then all the Greeks are very happy. So the Milby is being sacrificed for the greater good. Yep. And then the last one is a cliffhanger. What would you do? And it's going to be interactive, and you can have little options going off and different stories depending on what you would do. We might give them the option of rescuing the Milby or trying to invoke the demon some other way, and so on. So that was our story.
First thoughts on just a couple of technical things.
Yeah.
Establishing shot.
Yes.
Spectacular.
Cool.
The only thing that I would add to it, if I was writing that page, would be, I mean, you had all the elements there to give a sense of place and to make it recognizable. Yeah. The only thing I would add is a wider establishing shot before that.
Yeah. I think in terms of it as interactive, you'd start on the other side of the ferry and go like panoramic and sort of.
That's actually quite nice. When I say wide though, I mean like to the point where the boat is the smallest thing in the image. And that's simply because when you reduce the amount of detail that you see with that first image, what you can do is just give a sense of tone
Okay. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And starting out with a sense of tone is a great way to start the story, because then you're just
Okay, yeah.
then you're moving into the story, you're zooming into the story, the detail reveals itself as the story
So
goes
like
on.
a tiny
No,
little
yeah.
boat heading
Yeah.
towards a harbour with a
Yeah.
hill behind it with a big Greek temple on it.
Perfect,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
time of day, you know, you can set
Yeah.
lighting, all that sort of thing.
Yeah.
It's crucial information, but it's not heavy on details, and it's just a way of easing the reader into the story. A little technical thing that I've learned about art, things like sparks and stuff like
Yeah.
that, especially things that are in motion and that emit light, it's just easier if you don't try to draw the whole object, but you try to draw it the way the eye sees it.
Yeah.
So, you know, there would be incomplete lines, you know, there would be, you know, lines indicating movement,
Yeah.
and white, actually. If something like, with something like sparks, you wouldn't actually draw the whole spark, you would draw a section of visible light, or sorry, a section of like colored light
Yeah.
around the whitest part of it. So it's kind of an incomplete object on the page, but it does
Yeah,
give a
yeah.
sense of light.
Okay.
But other than that, fantastic. Does anybody else have anything, any comments, particularly with regards to any of the stuff you guys learned on Wednesday about comics, writing, or visual?
I really like the fact that you set it up for us to think it was the cat, but it wasn't the cat. But the cat was the one that was actually going to be the agent that helped solve it.
Right.
So
That was
that
kind of
nice.
accidental. The cat
That
got
was
drawn
nice.
in, and then when we got to this point in the story, it was like, how does the vet know what the problem is? Oh, the cat can tell him,
Yeah.
kind of thing.
Yeah, we did a bit like I was saying with Marvel stuff. I think that she was explaining how to do it at the same time.
And right, and
Yeah.
that's after we learn what a milby is,
Oh,
right?
yes, yeah.
Which is actually really, really clever from a storytelling point of view, because like I said before, when you start giving the audience information, you don't give them everything. When you're telling a story, controlling the flow of the information is actually really, really important.
Yeah.
Part of the reason is it keeps the story moving, but it also helps the audience learn what the rules are. So if we learn immediately that there is such a thing as a milby, immediately after that, we're totally cool with cats talking.
Yeah.
Whereas if you did it the other way around, it would just be progressively weirder, you know?
It's a lucky accent.
Yeah,
Right,
because the
right,
milby
yeah.
is weirder than the cat. Right,
Right,
you get the
right,
point,
right.
yes.
Accepting the milby is the reader signing on to a very large, very vague contract that
Yeah.
actually allows you to get away with a lot afterwards.
We'll show you what we've got and see if you can work out what's going on. And then there's some bits we'll have to tell you because we didn't get to quite finish.
No, that is fine. Works in progress, always fine.
And it's a pencil, so can you see that?
Well, we're probably a little short on time.
Okay.
We can just move it a little in front, right?
A little closer. It's called Revit. And this is this. It might be, yes, or Bjorn again. We haven't. So we have. This is. Well, that in case you can't read that, it says obituaries, Mr. B.A. Gain.
He's sitting in his office.
And he's bored.
Yeah, he's a journalist. We have to explain that, right?
Sorry, our things were reporter, shopkeeper, cyberpunk action,
Core of the Earth.
core of the earth,
Cemetery.
cemetery.
Fantastic.
So he's bored.
He's sitting in his office and he's an obituary writer.
That's it.
He's an obituary writer. A fantastic character from the get-go.
And something blows in the window. If that makes. And what it says, in case you can't read it, revitalise your life. See Sid. I forget where he was. Oh, Earthside Cemetery, Monument Road. A week earlier,
He remembers the
yeah,
cemetery.
this is flashback. Okay.
He was there.
The first one.
No pen.
Yeah, yeah. He's there to write an obituary. He gets knocked over from a guy, and the guy drops a pen.
So he
on
goes,
the
I'll have that.
and he takes it.
Back to the present day. So he's got this leaflet, it's got the address, he's going there. This is Sid. So he's basically showing him the leaflet and asking him about, revitalise your life, come and see Sid. The guy's like, no idea, mate. I'm thinking, how did you get that?
And
So he just thinks, oh, well, while I'm here then, I'll just find out something else from you. Takes his pen out. And it's like,
Sid sees the pen.
Sid sees the pen. He's actually shopkeeper to the dead. And so Sid then says something like, we haven't put all the dialogue on this, there's someone you need to meet.
It drags him along.
It goes on to the churchyard and into the church and into the confession box. But they both go into the confession box, the same bit of the confession box. He's thinking, I'm not even a Catholic, what's going on here? But it turns out it's actually a lift to the core of the earth. Bing!
So now they're at the core of the earth.
Yes. And they come out of the lift. As it turns out, I probably should explain. So the Revit pen is the thing that's been lost that was supposed to be delivered. Should I be telling this at this point?
Yes, well, we can just explain, like the top picture. They arrive at the core of the earth, so all of these dead people are, of course, around them. The thing that our good friend doesn't know is that this pen is a magical pen and it has disappeared from the core of the earth because this pen, if you write somebody's name with this pen, they actually get their life back.
So they're revitalized.
So the moment they appear down there, all of the dead people kind of see this pen and they surround him and they say, please write my name, write my name. And he doesn't understand anything. But then the alarms go off.
And it's like big, big alarms, huge alarms. And the NYDP arrive.
Yeah.
This is their big guns, is the not yet dead police.
Because they
Because
detected.
they're not dead and they shouldn't be down there.
They detected the non-dead people.
Then, so then we go to, because we've also run out of time.
No, let's just explain.
sorry.
Yes. So the thing we haven't gotten in here is that, no, it's true, we're going to explain that afterwards.
Yeah. So what happens is then, because we didn't have time to write all the rest of it in, was basically how they escape, how they get back, and then they start up the business and they carry on doing this, so everyone gets revitalised. And now he has a much more interesting job, because what he does, he writes obits and revits. And he just ends up, this other guy's working for him as well now, and he's actually just going to explain to him, so what happened was, it was amazing, we managed to get away, and
All these dead people revitalized.
yeah, and it's brilliant, they're
You
good
got to
guys.
write their
Oh,
stories.
and this is, so now his office is called Revits, and it reveals his name. I don't know if you read that. Bjorn A. Game. So that's,
is that the end?
yeah.
Oh.
But there will be more, that's the thing, there will be more. Then you can go from there to the
absolutely.
Revits that you have.
It's kind of a pre-story.
So I think original version, I think we had 20
pre-story
pages,
to
a 20-page
series
script.
of 100
But-
episodes.
Amazingly put in visual version for us in a way that we couldn't have done in a year. About
The
half an
visual
hour.
storytelling is excellent,
Yeah.
actually.
So we had our ideas in our head, but then you were suggesting, what about this? And it meant that for quite a lot of the time, for 3 frames or 4 frames we'd have put in, you put in one that just
Which is
took us
exactly
forward.
what you should be doing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's fantastic. Can you feel free to have a seat if you're done? And take us through the
And I'll take them off after.
Yes, absolutely. Wow. Okay. First of all, just an excellent premise. Really quite good, and a really great example of genre mashup. I think this is a really great example of what collaboration can produce, bringing together different ideas, not even running with those specific ideas, but seeing where they take you as part of a conversation.
Yeah.
Fantastic example.
We originally, he was going to be like the equivalent of Neo. So he doesn't know he's the person they've been looking for, but he's the person they've been looking for forever.
Right.
And, but he was going to be really dumb about it, and he kept accidentally doing things that showed he was, but had no idea they were thinking that. But we simplified it.
I would say from a storytelling perspective, This is a graphic novel. Absolutely. I'd say it's a self-contained story. I'd say that this probably the first act or half of the first act of what could potentially be an incredibly powerful story. Of course, you would want something to end up going terribly wrong.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, if I were writing this, he would absolutely try to make money off of this and see himself as kind of, you know, a savior at the same time, and then just have that go awful. I would avoid zombies.
No, there's no zombies in it. And in fact, the people keep saying, having to keep saying that.
Right.
I'm not a zombie.
Beautiful. Yeah, excellent premise, excellent example of collaboration. If you were going to make an ongoing series out of it, which you could do, I would say different objects. You know, it's, you know, for one story arc, you know, maybe like 3-4 comics, it's the pen. For, you know, the next it's another object that does something seemingly amazing, but is also, you know, horrifying. Any thoughts? Particularly with how they've, you know, put this together. Maybe not the story itself, but how they put it together. Anybody notice that they didn't have a lot of dialogue, you know, worked out, even planned, but they knew the story they wanted and they did the visual beats first, right? Does everybody remember what that's called? Roger talked about this. It's an industry technique. It is the Marvel method. Yeah, that's right. Anything else? Anything else anybody's noticed or particularly wants to comment on?
I really like the big panel with the not yet dead police.
Gorgeous. Yeah, absolutely gorgeous. That is a perfect panel to do something like that because what you've done in terms of the story is you've shown that the rules of the world are much more complex in the sense that there are, you know, gatekeepers, there are consequences, and that there's somebody monitoring the rules, somebody actually out to enforce the rules of the world. And you did that with a big splash panel. Excellent. If I were pacing this, like if I were doing the layout myself and writing the script for it, you'd absolutely want to make that page the turn page.
Yeah, but
You know.
that's
Talked about
all
that.
Adrian's.
Yeah.
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 So we started, we have talked about how to make a three-person history crashed down in a medium that got only two sides.
Mm-hmm.
So we come up with a 7-page story that can be in one side of the, the closed pamphlet,
Mm-hmm.
and we got another kind of story in the other, and then I will walk you, because I don't know how to draw, so you will have to use quite a lot of imagination.
Mm.
This is an establishing shot of the elevator shaft where our main character lives. He's a male. He got his whole apartment stuff above the elevator. He got a writing machine. He makes his pen, his paper ready to type. Then we see that the elevator stops. You have to grab the lamp to make the close call and start typing. Let me talk to you about Melissa. And we see the man hanged to the trees, and Melissa is trying to dismember him. And the caption goes with the flow of the guy who's writing. And he's saying all sweet things about Melissa. She's red, she's a good nurse, and we see a wider shot where we see better the man hanging and Melissa cutting into pieces. She drags the body, and we read the caption, she dragged me around the city. She says me I have good hands, and we say Melissa chopping hands of the cause. Here we say Melissa using the chopped fingers to paint. She's some kind of painter. I believe she made portraits. We say Melissa working on the table. Chopped fingers dropping. She made not art of commission, only personal works. She's kind of an artist. She looks at the painting, and we see the cabin log on the distance where Melissa is. And she have a wall gallery of painting made this way, and The caption reads, "She has some kind of gallery somewhere. I think I'm in love." And we talked that on the other side of the pamphlet, using the same structure of panel, only telling the story from her point of view. And then here Melissa dismembering things and telling good stuff about the man. And here the man misbehaving with woman of every kind. Oh, he's such a gentleman, he keeps the door open for me. And he's, in Italy we should say a female waster, because he goes after a female, after another, after another, after another. And then we talked about that we use augmented application, augmented reality application, to narrate the story of this man here, who got his wife in an affair with the man. And here, browsing through the panels with the augmented reality application, all the caption changes and makes the thoughts of the man dismembered. In the side where we have Melissa's story, and we see the man misbehaving with woman. The woman is his wife, is the wife of the dismembered man. And we say, I've seen this ruined my life, blah, blah, blah. I've seen he was with this man. And then we turn the pamphlet over the man's story, this side. And we see, oh, I got to a bar. I took the first woman I've seen to make my wife pay. She's got red hair and so on. She was Melissa, and she ended up in her gallery. That was the more or less how we talked to do this stuff.
It's gorgeous. Does anybody have any thoughts before I started on this? Okay, well, I'll go ahead and start, and if you guys think of anything, let me know. Okay, so first of all, from a practical point of view, I love this simply because it's a very simple story. It's exactly what comics are for as far as visual storytelling goes, and there's a really nice collaboration going on between the art and the writing. I think you guys made the most of the concepts that were given to you, the genre, location, occupation. You guys lucked out too, because what you had from those were some really interesting opposites. You got writer, artist, you got elevator, log cabin, and then what was the third one? Erotica and bunkers.
Yeah.
There's nothing but amazing stories hiding in the in the line between those two sets of words. And you made the most of it. I love that instead of going with the log cabin as a home, you went with the elevator. Just a small, brief thing, personal preference. When the elevator stops and he shakes, and the lamp shakes and he grabs it, this is just a thing that I notice a lot with comics. Size, comics do really well. Detail, comics can do really well. I am always let down by the lack of weight. I'm let down by the lack of mass in the world, physical objects that have inertia, that sort of thing. And that is a really beautiful, subtle way to convey a sense of mass in your visual world. I'm a big fan of the two stories that are happening on opposite sides of the page. I like that a lot, especially because we've got these really great opposites happening throughout all the concepts. It's an excellent way to do it. And to keep it short at the same time, not only are you making the most out of your number of pages, but this is a totally achievable endeavor. You can do this comic. This is 2 stories that you can tell with like 4 sheets of paper. That's it. 4 sheets of paper and some staples. If you want to spring for staples. You could print this at home. This is a nice lovely street comic, street zine. You can print this at home and, you know, just hand them out, give them to people for, you know, 50 cents, that sort of thing, and get your comic out there. I would consider this a gift. Like, to me, that would be a gift to culture, something that's easy to produce, super cheap to buy. I'm a big fan of the augmented reality thing, actually. I think that's pretty well thought out as well.